Thank you, Mrs. Bendel, and I'd like to thank the school board for inviting us to be able to give you a heads up on what we do at the Chagrin Falls Alumni Association. And this past Saturday, we celebrated our 175th birthday as a school system. And here with me, I'm alumni director, but I have Andy Weingart. He is our alumni president, and he here has the very first school board minutes that show our very first meeting, which met under candlelight in 1849.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. So we keep this book off-site, and I will have everyone open it up and check it out, pass it around. But you can clearly see when you look at the very first page, a newspaper article from 1849, and then minutes of how everything was kept. Brian will get into it, but that book, along with many others, were retrieved from the garbage when the Philomathian School was remodeled back in 1988, when I think I was in 7th or 8th grade when that was going on. And that's just one of many items that we treasure and keep and want to make sure that it's remembered and allowed for everyone to see.
I feel like we should be wearing gloves.
Yeah, the fingers on it are.
So the Alumni Association began about 120 years ago, but then after about 2 decades went dormant. In 1989 is when Tom Mattern, with the disposing of odds and ends, he helped bring it all back together, went dumpster diving, and we got an Alumni Association going again. And just wanted to give you guys an idea of what we do regularly. We do newsletters. Every year we do 2 to 3 newsletters. We do scholarships. We give 5 or 6 annually, given over 150 since 1989. We also oversee a scholarship website where we pull in the different support groups and families that would like to give a scholarship to our seniors. Currently, we have about 15 groups with 35 scholarships. We also here have the Tom Mattern Historical Room right off this Sands Community Room, where we house many of our great artifacts. And we will always finish our tours here on the 712 campus with the Historical Room. We oversee a website where we have the history of the school and also all our yearbooks, over 100 yearbooks all scanned in, which is great for research. We do a Hall of Fame for our athletic achievement, and we have all class reunions every year. This is our big reunion weekend this past weekend, but in March we do a reunion down in Florida, and we've had also alumni groups doing different events from art to music. We have over the years always supported our other support organizations, especially with fundraising, and we have that alumni database so we can communicate with our alumni. We have now reached over 12,000 graduates here at Chagrin Falls. We're on Facebook, Twitter, or X, Instagram, and we also keep connected with our retirees. You may not know it, but our retirees gather together twice a year for social events, but in smaller groups, usually monthly. And we also oversee a number of donations to the school. Recently, I organized the history of all the named items on the school campus, from this room to the historical room to even water fountains that we have named, which we do. And just so here at graduation, our 24 alumni kids this year that have a mom, and actually 4 of them have a mom and dad that went to Chagrin Falls. We have our Florida reunion. Oh boy. There was our retirees together. Here we have our passing of our key, which is in the historical room, and the now new tradition of the ringing of the victory bell at graduation. And there is Keanu and his mother, both Chagrin graduates, ringing it together after graduation. So here I go over and over so many people that have graduated from Chagrin. We got people that have won Emmys, Oscars, Pulitzers, Grammy nomination. We haven't won a Grammy yet, but we have people all over in different areas of a lot of great success. So we are thankful to be able to be a part of the school system, and we're thankful that you guys invited us to speak.
Thanks so much for coming, Brian.
That's so great.
You know, one of the things, I'm the board rep who attends the alumni meetings, which I just started doing, I've been to 2 now. And I was amazed to learn that there's off-site reunions, that people get together in Florida, and is that something you guys organize, or?
We have been supporting it, and we help with the database. We help communicate, and it's been happening since the early 2000s. Then went off for a couple of years, some turnover, and then it's been back up again for the last about 8-9 years. We've had trying to get an event in Colorado together, and some smaller gatherings have happened elsewhere.
Thank you, thanks for coming, and that's
Thank you.
amazing. Do you guys, how do you want to maybe grab that and show it to the kids so they can see it as
The
well?
book.
Or we can set it somewhere where you guys can come up
And
and
I
see
know
it if
in
you
the
want.
classroom, I do take it to the store.
It's really amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we're going to move on to the public participation part of our agenda. I need to read this disclosure statement. We recently changed our public participation policy, and now we have an opportunity, we have 2 opportunities for people to speak before, to something that is actually on our agenda, which is why I think most of you guys are here. So you'll speak now, and if there's anybody here who wants to speak to something that's not on the agenda, we have another moment at the end of the meeting where you can do that. So I'm going to read this disclosure now, but then if you guys want to come up, and Ashley will let you know who's signed up. The purpose of the Board of Education meetings is for the board to conduct its business. Board meetings are held in public but are not public forums. Community members who contacted the superintendent in advance of the meeting may be provided an opportunity to speak first. Pursuant to Board Policy 0169.01, the board agenda will have 2 public participation sections. The first public participation of the board agenda is specifically designed for the public to address the board with their comments related to the agenda items for that meeting. This portion of the meeting shall be limited to 30 minutes unless extended by a vote of the board. The second public participation section of the board's agenda is specifically designed for the public to address the board with their comments related to non-agenda items. This second opportunity for public comment shall be after the completion of all action items on the agenda. This portion of the meeting shall be limited to 15 minutes unless extended by a vote of the board. The board may permit individuals to attend meetings remotely through a live broadcast. However, public participation will be limited to those who are in attendance at the meeting site only. The board is not responsible for any technology failures that prevent or disrupt any individual from attending remotely. Each participant will have 3 minutes to speak. No person may speak twice until all who desire to speak have had the opportunity to do so. Remember, this is a formal and official meeting of the board, and what you say becomes part of the official meeting report. If your comment involves a problem with a student, employee, or board member, please do not address them by name. Keep in mind we are meeting in a schoolhouse and possibly in the presence of students. Following your public comment, if you have specific questions, please email the superintendent at jenniferpenzarski@chagrinschools.org.
Okay. The first name that I have to speak tonight is Dorothy Quinton.
Good evening. My name is Dorothy Quinton, parent of 2 Chagrin Falls students, 8th and 10th grade. I am here tonight as it came to my attention earlier today that the high school position discussed at the 5:15 board meeting, a position currently full-time and to be reduced to part-time for the 2024-2025 school year, is a teaching position within the music department. I want to express my hope that the district takes the adequate time to speak with all of these students, families, and teachers in the department to help understand how we can best move forward to ensure they are not worried for the future of their music programs. For many of these students, it is within the walls of a rehearsal space that they find their best friends, their home away from home, their safe place. Their music teachers will be the teachers they never forget. When I say teachers, I mean teachers. Many of these students are in more than one ensemble, many happily coming before school and staying after school. The moments in these groups will likely become the most treasured of their short time their most treasured memories of their short time here at Chagrin Falls Schools. Working towards getting creative, finding solutions for making all music staff positions full-time will ensure that the Chagrin Falls School continues to be among the best in music education. Full-time positions ensure we retain and attract the best. Adjusting, adapting, and creativity will empower our district to bridge future dips in enrollment and to retain the amazing and enthusiastic directors for many years. Strong programs are built on longevity, support, and security. Thank you for your time.
Dorothy, if you want that word for word in the minutes, I'll just take a copy of it. Thanks. Just makes my job so much easier. Next is Janet Castellas. Did I pronounce that correctly? Yes. Okay.
Hi, my name is Janet Castellas, and I am a parent of two sons at Chagrin, who I will mention in here. So I'm here to speak on the importance of a full-time choral position at Chagrin Falls Middle School and High School. I currently have a 7th grader, Dimitri, who's grown into a beautiful singer. I'm sorry, his tone has taken on a new quality over the course of one single year in Mr. Z's class. He was recently accepted into the Cleveland Orchestra Children's Chorus. He met with him after school, outside of hours with no compensation, to help him prepare for his audition. But I don't want to speak about one student. I want to speak about all the current and potential students for the choir and AP and any other music programs that this position supports. First, let me explain why music is so important to me. When I was in school, I struggled to find my place, and band is where I found that home. I had the same teacher from 5th grade through 12th grade. No other position had that kind of continuity through my career at school. In fact, I just contacted my former band director to tell him that my current 5th grader will be in the 6th grade band next year and playing the same instrument that he did. I still want to share things with him, and it's been over 20 years since I graduated. So what does this have to do with Mr. Z and Chagrin? Despite only being in his 2nd year of teaching at our schools, he has started to implement traditions to make his mark on the choral community. He taught all grades the Chagrin alma mater, which he wants to sing each and every year. His songwriting students are now performing at the spring concert, and he's hoping to have alumni come back and join his current students on stage at some of these performances. These are the types of traditions that Chagrin Falls prides itself on. It is tremendous that Mr. Z recognizes this in his very short tenure at Chagrin so far. It is these kinds of activities that frequently get lost with a part-time position. By reducing the choir position, the entire program and its continuity can be disrupted each time there is turnover. I am afraid that a part-time position would make it where we become a launching pad as teachers are looking to find a full-time position, and that we will not have someone to provide these students with the support that they so deserve. It may mean the elimination of some of the after-school activities or before school, like the POPs, which I must say did double in size this year, because he's providing a place for students to be able to sing even if they are already in band and strings and doing other activities. And so he's reaching even more people than just the kids that are in the actual choir. So I feel that they might be deprived of the long-lasting relationship with the teacher that you can get from middle school through high school and beyond. I understand that enrollment numbers need to be increased, but I believe that a part-time may only make them decrease, and I wish that this was brought to the attention of the community earlier. Anyway, thank you for your time. I'm not quite done, so that's okay.
Do you have that taped up?
I do.
I'll take a copy of it if you don't mind.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is Jeffrey Perry.
I am a student here at Chagrin Falls Middle School, and I am here to talk about Mr. Zygmunt. It has come to my attention earlier today that he might be put into a part-time job here at the Chagrin Falls Middle and High School. And I would just like to say that I think all of his students could agree that he is a very good teacher. We would like to keep him here with us full-time. And if he does leave, or become a part-time teacher, he may need to leave, excuse me, he may need to fully leave to find a job that could support him. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Emily Allen.
Sorry, I had to get my notes up. Okay. Hi, I'm Emily Allen, and I'm a choir student here at Chagrin Falls. I participate in choir, pops choir, basically any choir I can get. I do not think that Mr. Z can provide the same support that he has provided us now if he's only working here part-time. For example, after class, during pops choir, after class on pops choir, after class in regular choir, I have seen students go up to him and ask him for help to just get that note or to pronounce the vowel correctly or help with the words or test their range or advice for an audition. And I have seen him help, and I'm just worried that if he's not here all the time to give this support to students and to help them in the way that he has, then these students might not be able to flourish as they would if he was here full time. We have a wonderful arts program here, and we support our students in every way we can, and I think it's amazing. And I think that we should also be able to provide that same sort of full-time support in choir as we do with other subjects. And I am also afraid that if we do have Mr. Z here on part-time and we do cut his pay, that he would leave in search of a better opportunity. I mean, he's a young adult and he's being paid as a teacher. And so if we already cut that pay into a smaller fraction, that he would try and find a better job, one that could actually pay him in the life that he needs right now. I'm sorry, my notes. And if he does leave, I'm worried because we have all already formed a connection with him. Us eighth graders, people in eighth grade, were his first real class here at Chagrin. And we have got to know him right as he truly was from the beginning, from the get-go. And I'm worried that if he leaves in high school, we won't be able to form that same original bond that we had. Okay, thank you for your time.
Next is Dimitri Castellas.
I do have notes, but I don't think I'm going to follow them 100%. So I'd just like to start by saying that Mr. Z has really just changed my life. I was recently actually recommended to become a part of the Cleveland Orchestra Youth Chorus, which is a very big deal, and I was only recommended for this after I had performed a solo and tried very hard at Mr. Z's big spring concert, which was really important to me. And actually, to prepare for the audition, which came up on short notice, I had less than a week to prepare, Mr. Z offered me the opportunity to go in with him and actually stay after school, as my mother said, to help me with my audition piece and everything. And throughout the year, he's just helped me and many other people really just grow as a singer, as a student. And he's just a really great teacher. I actually only heard about this board meeting at 4 p.m., but when I heard about this, I got on with a bunch of other people and we started texting, and we had at least 50, probably closer to 75 kids who we all texted and all said that they would like to show full support. So at the end of this, I'd actually like to share a couple of names who have asked me specifically to share that they would like to show support. And honestly, like just towards our concerts, even as we grow closer towards these concerts, he really gets us focused, helps us just get ready for these concerts, gets us into a mode. And I feel like with other teachers, I just never really get that. Like when I'm close to a test, for example, I don't get the same sort of help and focus that I do with Mr. Z. And I feel like taking him down from a full-time to part-time position can really just lower that and the connections, as have been stated before. And it just really would help, it would really diminish the fact that he helps us so much and tries to help us grow, not just as singers, but if we have a question, even about another class, he's often willing to help. And now I'm just gonna share a few names. Madison and Maylin Livingston. There is Lo Rickert, there is Lauren McKenna, there is Rosemary and Stella Pace, and these are just 7th graders. Charlie Bird, Milo Quinton, Liam Nash, Paige Morrison, all of them would also like to show this, and I'm sure there are many other high schoolers and middle schoolers who would love to show support for Mr. Z and would really love it if he stayed in a full-time position. Thank you for your time.
Okay, next is Rosie Horvath.
Kind of the same as Dimitri. I have notes, but I'm just not going to follow them probably. Sorry. So for those who don't know, my name is Rosie Horvath. I'm a freshman here at Chagrin, and I've been involved in music pretty much my whole life. I started on violin at 4 years old and have been playing since then. And I also started theater with Mrs. Hainish at around 5 or 6 years old. So I've been really involved my whole life. I really want the board to reconsider this, changing it from a part-time to a part-time job. I lost Mr. Wachowski as a teacher in 7th grade when he moved on to get a better job. And I didn't just get Mr. Z, I gained Mr. Z. I didn't warm up to him at first because it was like, I'd had Mr. Wachowski in elementary school and then I had a chance to have him again. And then when that chance was taken, I was a little mad. But I ended up warming up to Mr. Z a lot, and he really helped me a lot. Not just grow as a singer, but grow as a performer. I've been doing it my whole life, but really, since having him, I think my confidence has just skyrocketed. He really there's something about him, and you can feel it, he just really, really cares. He is one of the most dedicated choir directors I've ever had, and I will tell you, I've had a lot. He does so much for us, from coming here really, really early to do select choir and leaving late to do the theater performances. He has never once gotten mad at us, no matter how crazy we get, no matter how much we talk at him, or no matter how many times we ask him for a note and still mess up, which happens a lot. He has never once given up on us. And I think changing his job from a full-time to a part-time would change that, because then there's a good chance he might leave due to not great pay from full to part. And then, I've already lost Mr. Wachowski. I don't want to lose Mr. Zigman too. He's really great, and I don't think I could ever form that great of a bond with another choir director. And with the time I have left, I want to share a personal story. I sang Being Alive from the musical company for the spring concert as a solo, and Mr. Zigman didn't know much about the musical, but he knew the song. And he knew that I wasn't performing it the way that I could. So he had me come in during advisory, and he worked me through the song, and he told me everything that I was doing wrong and how I could fix it. And he helped me to not continuously rock back and forth and to really take the stage and own it. And I think with him having a part-time job, I don't think that up-and-coming 7th graders would be able to have that bond with him where he really does those things and helps. Thanks.
Okay. I have video. Okay, Abigail Gold.
Hello, sorry. Hello, my name is Abigail Gold, and I'm an 8th grader at the Chagrin Falls Middle School. At the start of 7th grade, I was not too enthusiastic about choir. I loved singing. I've been singing and songwriting since I can't even remember. And I did it because I knew it was something I was good at and I enjoyed, but it wasn't particularly something I would go out of my way every day to try to work as hard as I could to achieve. I was a little bit taken aback at first by Mr. Z's enthusiasm. He got very excited for choir, but I think that 7th grade was when I really started to realize that music and choir and singing was something I really enjoy. I was part of the first pops choir that he did, and it was a very small group. And we didn't have too many rehearsals before the concerts. We'd have about half an hour every Friday, and that wasn't a lot of time. And he still made it that not only were we able to learn the songs well, but we still got to have fun. He never made us really buckle down and focus. He always let us have our laughs, and he always made sure that we were having a good time. I know that choir isn't something to be taken lightly. I know that a lot of us really care about choir, but it also isn't something to be taken as seriously as geometry. And Mr. Z realizes that by making sure that we're still able to have fun, whereas in other classes, maybe we aren't supposed to be as loud and obnoxious as we sometimes are allowed to be in choir. Mr. Z's helped a lot of kids realize talents that in other classes might not have been as recognized. At the spring concert, we got to see a lot of different talents. We had a really fun Shrek performance. We had a student-written song from the singer-songwriters group and a band name even. And we had a lot of amazing solo acts, duets, and it was stunning to see such a wide variety of talent. Because I realized how much I enjoy music, I decided to try out for Interlochen. It's a world-renowned music program up in Michigan, and I got in for singer-songwriting. And I will be attending this summer for a 3-week program. I'm hoping to also work on singer-songwriting here, but I think that by seeing Mr. Z's enthusiasm and seeing how excited he was to help us learn and how much he realized that we have talent and worked so hard on each of us, I was able to really try for that. He makes all the classes the best part of my day. Thank you for your time.
That's all I had on the list.
Students, thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it, and we really love hearing from students. And usually after public participation, people leave. I would really appreciate it if you would stay, because Dr. Penzarski is going to talk about how these decisions are balanced and how we try to make sure that students get what they need while we're still being economically responsible to our community. She's going to give you some more details, but that's a little bit later in the meeting. And then we'll take a break if people want to leave after that. But if you can stay for a few minutes, that would be terrific. I make a motion to approve consent agenda items 4.02 through 4.05.
I'll
Do I
second.
have a second? That was Lauren.
Got it.
Jennifer, you want to?
This is just consent.
Anything you want to tell us, or we're good? Okay, we're good. Ashley, can you take the roll?
Mrs. Bendel.
Yes.
Mrs. Hoy.
Yes.
Mrs. Miller.
Yes.
Dr. Sabo.
Yes.
Dr. Schlepper.
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve superintendent recommendations 5.02 through 5.11. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
So we'll start walking through these. If we start at 5.02, the summer extended school year services credit recovery. This is something that we adopt this time of year. So this should be routine for us, and then we just are acknowledging what teacher will be covering that for 15 days at the contractual rate. 5.03, we start with our certified contracts. You'll see that this is our computer science teacher for the high school that we will be replacing. Just remember that all the information regarding our new teacher and any new classified staff hires will happen at the first meeting in August. We'll invite everyone and do a little bit of their bio, and then they can have the meet and greet with the board. The next section would be certified personnel additional hours. All of this section, again, is just for all of the summer trainings and different things that teachers would do to prepare for the upcoming school year, whether it's to prepare for their classes or to prepare for maybe a change in course that they would be teaching or different kinds of professional development. Which takes us over to 5.05. We have one resignation for middle school. A Spanish teacher, Brooke Campbell, will be resigning at the end of this year. Which brings us to 5.06, which is the recommendation to do a reduction in force of 3 teaching positions, which we discussed last board meeting. And just to kind of bring everyone back up to speed on this decision and all of these decisions for all 3 positions are not taken lightly. And they are strictly based on the enrollment and how we can structure a teacher's day. And so the problem that we face is that we are not changing any of the course offerings. So everything that had student enrollment as far as the scheduling occurred and as far as the scheduling requests, everything has been filled, everything has been scheduled. And at the end of the day, there were 3 periods for choral music. And so that's what caused it to go down to 4 periods, because we also allow that prep period, that period for the interaction with students and to be able to do that preparation for other classes. So it actually ends up being 4 periods. That doesn't change any supplemental contracts that any teacher receives. It doesn't change any before or after school programming. And please understand, it shouldn't be permanent, which means that once we get courses, once we get student enrollment, once we get those things up and running, even if we go, let's say next year and we have 4 courses that we're able to offer, then we would be up to 5 periods, right? We just have to be able to fill the schedule, and we do that. And that's also what we saw at the intermediate school with the 2 half-time positions, the one in 5th grade for math and the one for ELA. Both of those positions just simply, we don't have students to fill those classes next year, and that's why we have to be fiscally responsible at the end of the day to having a classroom with no students for a period and not being able to find something. And just know that there are a lot of discussions going on behind the scenes and working on just for music in general. If you don't know that music is very near and dear to me, being a band director, growing programs from 28 kids that were on the edge of losing periods, you can have, remember, we can also adjust hours. So we've seen even on other board agendas where we've taken 8-period days, maybe down to 5 or 6, and we've adjusted hours. So there's a lot of different things. And so you have to be very creative. And what I loved about what the students said today is that they were talking about the things that they loved about music. And what really helps with building programs and getting the right classes so we get the right enrollment is to help us design what kind of choral music classes or what kind of music classes that we're offering so that we can get the highest level of enrollment. And so we need to be really creative, and we need the students to help us understand what kind of courses can we be offering, what kind of electives can we be offering, so that we can get that interest, that enrollment to be adding classes so that we can get beyond those 3 classes that we had enrollment for this year. The other thing that we're doing, and I think the board is aware too, we're doing a full music audit for 12. So I've been working with the music department, and so has Mr. Molleman, and actually even Mr. Doherty. He's learned a lot about music this year. But the interesting part is to really understand how we offer music for 12 as a whole across all of the areas, because it's interesting to me that Chagrin stops mandating music in 7th grade. And so there's no music requirement from 7 to 12. And then we see a significant drop in enrollment in music as a whole, as a content area between 6th and 7th grade. So what are the barriers that are preventing kids from enrolling to 6th and 7th grade? And when you look at a teacher like Mr. Z, he starts at 7th grade. So all of our other teachers are touching 5th and 6th grade. So how do we get that connection and that piece? So just please know, everything is done very intentionally there are a lot of conversations, but we have a fiscal obligation as well. And if we can't fill classes and schedules, that puts us in a predicament where we have to make these kinds of decisions. But they should not be permanent, and we should be looking at solutions. And I agree with the students. I still have students contact me from when I was the band director, and those connections and those relationships are lifelong, and they're important. And shifting band directors, I had to do it when I was a freshman, is the hardest thing for a student to go through. And so we want to make sure that we're able to give constant, consistent, high-quality programming to our students. But unfortunately, sometimes we also have to make fiscally responsible decisions. And in this case, we have to do this because we just do not have students for classes right now. But it doesn't change programming for what students have enrolled in, and it doesn't change before or after. But hopefully the students that are here can help us maybe creative offering those courses. Because remember, in the fall, we can add new courses, and then they do their course selections in the like January, February range. So we could look at what that looks like. Plus, we're doing that music audit to see what other barriers can we eliminate for our entire music program. So I don't know if that's helpful. And maybe I'll just press pause for a minute and ask the board if you have any questions about my recommendation for 5.06.
Do you know what the numbers are in terms of what enrollment used to be and what we're looking at for next year?
Honestly, don't have it in front of me, but I can tell you that there were 47 kids enrolled for choral music for next year. I do not know how many scheduling conflicts there were and how many actually got scheduled, and that was across 3 courses.
How many courses, how many students is the bare minimum in an enrollment in a course?
Depends on the course. So you could have
In
something like
choral.
AP Theory that might have 3.
Okay.
Do we offer AP Theory? Absolutely, because AP
Right.
Theory is an important class to
Oh,
students
it
that
was
are.
my 5. That was the
Yes.
only 5 I got.
It's an important class for students going into music, and if we can afford to offer it, we need to offer it.
Amen.
But you know, you can only have so many choirs, right? And
Right.
if people are enrolling in 3, like a 7th grade choir, an 8th grade choir, and then your high school choir,
Right.
that's 47 students across 3 choirs that signed up. That's without the scheduling conflicts. I haven't seen the final scheduling this week, but that was where the numbers were being.
So we're still offering all the same choirs we were offering, and Mr. Z still has a period to devote
We're
to
offering the
students
choirs that students enrolled in.
that signed up for, right? And there's still an extra period that Mr. Z has for
Yep, because
offering
by
extra
contract,
support.
teachers have a prep period, and they should, because they
Right.
need to be preparing for the courses that they're teaching.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Can I speak on, and there's a question I promise at the end. So my choir teacher is part of the reason I wanted to become an educator at all. So I'm with you. We still talk. I send her a Christmas card every year. Anyway, so just so that, remember this, me too, right? My background is primarily in strings, and I have been a part-time strings teacher, right? It was like a 0.6 contract. And so the reason I bring that up is that, and I acknowledge that I don't understand the middle school and high school scheduling like I do, Gurney and Elementary and CFIS because that's where my children are. But when I was a teacher doing that part-time work, it wasn't that I was only in the building for the same number of half-day hours every day. We scheduled it so I did have full-day days and I had some part-day days, which meant that there were those opportunities for both before and after school to have those touch points with my students. So that's where, so you see where the question is going. Is there that kind of opportunity instead of like, you are only here, for 4 periods per day? And then again, I don't know all the ins and outs,
It equates to what
right?
would be the 4 periods per day. So
Right, is there a
remember,
way
the
of
middle
making a
school-
full day and a less?
Well, you have to be on whatever the schedule is.
Okay.
Remember, the high school is on an 8-period day.
Right.
And remember that the middle school has 2 block days, right?
True.
Hybrid days. So
Right.
that's the schedule that would be followed
Okay,
for this year.
got it.
But
So
there
however
is
that
a
falls.
before school,
Oh, absolutely.
so that's not changing.
No, and it could be after school as well.
Are the before and after school sessions, are those actual classes that are being
No,
enrolled in?
those are supplementals, so
Okay.
those are paid extra.
So he's getting paid extra for the time
We
for
did
before and
confirm that. So I
Okay.
wanted to make sure that was so.
Because there aren't many other teachers who are coming in before and after school and offering the amount that I feel like these students are talking about.
Well, the pop choir,
Yes,
right?
choirs once a
The
week.
select choir, Ashley's daughter is in the program.
I have it.
Oh, yeah,
She was
same.
in house choir, and it was every Friday.
Yeah, we actually have, because of the difficulty students have and how full their schedules are, there's a lot of things that where teachers will have a supplemental before school or after school because the kids can't fit it in their day.
Right.
You know,
That's pretty
that's one of the
standard.
challenges with enrollment is that we have a lot of offerings and kids take a lot of classes and they take in high school, they take a lot of AP classes. And while it may not be always the best thing that they're taking so many AP classes, or that's something that we really need to think about intentionally.
Yeah.
There are kids who will then, do these before, teachers will be accommodating and have these things before school. So because then after school, they're playing sports.
Yeah.
So,
And you're always doing the one-on-one, like coaching for what we heard about the Cleveland Youth Choir. I used to coach for Cleveland Orchestra, Akron Canton Orchestra when I was in the area as a band director. I mean, there are things that, you will do individually and work through to grow your students as well. The other thing that I'll tell you is those before and after school supplementals are crucial to any type of music program because it's the opportunity for kids that can't schedule 2 music classes to be able to explore the area that they want to. So for example, if I'm a band student but I have a passion for singing, those before and after school supplementals give me the opportunity to participate. So programs like that cannot go away, and they're just so important to our students because it gives us that venue to be able to say, I can be in choir, I can be in band, I can be in orchestra, I can be in band. And in a school this size, giving opportunities to students to venture into those different worlds and those different musical opportunities is just what Chagrin needs to be able to do.
Absolutely.
and I know we used to, maybe this is something for the audit, require students, if they wanted to participate in like the popular Mrs. Hanish's music programs that were the select choir, they needed to also participate in music during the day, and that was the entry point to be able to participate in the morning choir. So that's something we're always looking to balance, because you don't want kids to not participate during the day and just do the supplemental, but then you lose kids because some kids can only do the morning extra practice. So it's challenging.
And that's not required, for example, at the intermediate school. So my daughter is in the select choir in the morning, but then was taking band during the day. And I think that was a real benefit to her to be able to explore both.
Well, it was a music program. You
Oh,
could, as
any
long as you
music
were in
program.
any
Oh,
music
as long-
program,
okay,
you could
gotcha,
then
gotcha.
do select choir.
Oh,
And I don't think we do that in the upper grades.
gotcha.
We
That's
need to
something
watch
like that.
entry and exit points because some years in high school can be just more challenging for scheduling.
Right.
So some years you just may not, unfortunately, you just may not be able to get that music class because there's something else that you need to take. So we need to make sure that we have options for students outside of the day. So
Yeah.
maybe my freshman year, I can't fit it in the way I want to, but then my sophomore year, I might be able to grab 2. And I don't exactly know how that works here, but I always want to make sure that when we're doing those kinds of audits and when we're looking at things, that those opportunities exist so that there are multiple entry and exit points so that students are always having opportunities and choices. So if I can't fit it in my schedule, can I find music at some place in some way? And I think, and I know I'm speaking to music, but we need to do that for different things like art, for our athletics, for our different kinds of clubs that we offer. And so we just need to make sure that we're balanced, which is a lot of the reason that we're looking and doing some big audits next year of instruction. Because we want to look at our minutes and where we're spending them and how we're balancing that student well-being. Because music is a huge piece and the arts in general are a huge piece to well-being. And you heard that tonight. So.
Absolutely. As someone who went to however many years of school and my degrees, my best time that I ever had was in speech and debate and theater. And that was till 10 p.m. at night after school, in our classrooms with my best friends that I ever made, and then went on to college to compete in speech and debate. That is what led me to success. That is what taught me all of these things. I don't necessarily remember all of my AP classes and may have probably could have done better in them, but I remember my time in speech and debate. I remember my time in theater and my coaches. So I think we need to keep this consistently on our radar and say, how can we make this more accessible
And that's why we want to really spend the time next year to look at what are the other barriers. So
Yeah.
what are the other barriers that could be causing our students not to be able to enroll the way they want to?
And that's
And schedule
something
the way
that
they
you
want
guys
to.
can help with directly and give that feedback to directly, especially those 50 to 75 students that want to have a voice and want to show support.
And want to participate.
Yeah.
Which was-
Encouraging your friends to take music is really helpful. So, it's great that you're here to advocate, but also if you can, advocate with your classmates and see if you can get them to sign up.
Right, because we reevaluate this year after year.
Oh,
I mean,
and
someone
constant
mentioned
points throughout the
Pops,
year.
Pops choir doubled in size. I mean, if we can get twice as many kids as are signed up for choir, twice as many signed up next year, then we can go back to full time. That's, we'll need to.
And if you each convince one other friend to join, right, 57 becomes 114.
The other thing, just to share on a really positive note, is our Performing Arts Academy was dwindling in numbers, and we have doubled this year. So I know that the Performing Arts Academy draws from different school districts, but they have worked really hard on their recruiting, really hard on their programming. Their staffing is consistent, which you heard tonight, and there's buy-in. And so this junior class that will be coming in next year is almost, I think it is double as to anything that we've seen. So the numbers for the Performing Arts Academy is just phenomenal for next year. And I think that I'm really proud of what that team has done and how they've looked at their challenges and embraced them to grow their programming. So hopefully, like I said, any of this, and even like, let's just make sure we don't forget the two people at the intermediate school as well. As programming changes, remember the science of reading has just come out. We're looking at how that impacts our curriculum and how that impacts our instructional minutes. And should next year we find that we have these bubble moments or we have these pieces, then we would have to go back and make those adjustments as well. So even though I like to tend to talk about music, there are other things to talk about too, because we have to look at the entire instructional day, instructional minutes, and also how we spend our dollars over the course of those days and whether or not we're accountable to our taxpayers for the big picture as well. Does that help with your 5.06?
5.06.
07 would be additional hours. You can see these are for classified. You see it's Dave Kimball's tech specialist. Contracts for an aide. We love educational aides to apply. We'll have some more positions coming up if they're not posted yet. Summer laborers, you see those are coming up. If you know anyone that's interested in serving on our maintenance and custodial, I know they're still taking applications. There's a tech internship program. There was a question if this is a new program. It is not. This is a program that Mr. Doherty has had for years in the past. And then finally, there's some additional community education programming. So those would be all of my recommendations.
Ashley, please take the roll.
Mrs. Bendel,
Yes.
Mrs. Hoy,
No.
Dr. Sabo,
I'm going to abstain.
Dr. Schlepper,
Yes.
sorry, taking notes. Okay. It's 3 yeses, motion does carry.
Okay, I move to, we can take a quick break if anybody wants to go. If you want to stay for the treasurer's report, that would be great.
It's
But
really
if you want to
exciting.
excuse yourself now as a time, that's totally fine. I'd like to move to approve treasurer recommendations 6.02 to 6.03. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I'm gonna try not to be hurt by everybody leaving. What's that?
The 5-year forecast is beautiful.
Maybe they.
I mean, it's really exciting, and I cut it down. I
afterwards.
only have like a few slides. It's not really long.
I'm sorry,
She's apologizing.
You're fine.
She apologized for not staying.
Totally agree, take the Indian choir, 100%. Yeah. Music classes would be great.
That's the takeaway, then that's great. Yeah, why didn't you call my name?
Oh, yeah, you didn't call her.
Why didn't you call me?
I didn't?
Oh.
I marked you as yes. So I said it was 3 yeses. Was your vote yes?
going to say yes.
Okay.
I mean, you're not wrong, but you didn't say it.
Okay.
So I'm like, oh, did we not go to the end?
It's just because she changes the order.
I know,
You know,
we mixed it all
she
up.
makes us-
Well, they're
she
all
keeps
in
us on
the-
our toes.
They're written in the same order. I just, when you said no, it got me flustered. And then I was
sorry.
like, wait, what? I'm just so
Didn't
used to
feel
going
like in
check,
good
check, check.
I know, I didn't feel like I could get unconscious.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I will check and make sure that we are good, but I think we're fine. Okay.
Do you need to call me formally
So,
so I say it and it's on the record, or is that good enough?
Do you want to
Mrs.
take it again?
I can. That's fine.
I just want to be sure we're following. the
Well,
rules.
just Mrs. Miller,
Yes.
because you guys all already voted. You can't vote again.
Okay.
I will make sure, I'll call her, make sure we're good. I think we're fine. Okay,
Which direction?
moving on to 6.02 is equipment disposal. I don't even know what is on the attachment. In all honesty. Yes, that's
kiln,
right. It's
yes, the
only the
kiln.
kiln. That
Was
is,
that the one that caused the fire alarm the other day? Was that?
um,
That was the other day. That was like months ago.
Yeah,
but
no, yeah.
I remember there was a kiln issue.
Yes,
Okay.
so when it's beyond repair, it's beyond
Right,
repair.
yeah.
yes, there's nothing we can do about that now.
Setting fires. Let's get rid of that.
Okay,
We squeeze every ounce of it out of these pieces of equipment.
so I'm going to talk about the 5-year forecast. So in May, we update the forecast. So we don't start over and start from scratch. I take the November forecast, I update it for what has happened over the last 6 months. So really what I do is just talk about what has changed. So this is not going to be nearly as long as November, I promise. But I always have to point out when I do talk about the forecast, all of these items, it is an estimate. It's just, our best guess with the information that we have now. Information, as we know, in school finance and in the economy changes constantly. I have to make a lot of assumptions to come up with these numbers, and I'm not always right on what I'm assuming. The number, I said it can and it does change. The forecast can be resubmitted at any time during the year. So this is the end of May. We're not going to resubmit it again halfway through June, unless something catastrophic happened. But when we do submit this in November, if something happens during the year that's big and material and we want to resubmit it, we can resubmit it during the year as well. It's just that the May submission is required, so we update it right now. And always a reminder that the forecast represents only the general fund of the district. So it does not include the PI fund, all of the grant funds, all of those things. So here is a summary of what the current forecast looks like. The actual forecast is attached to the agenda, as well as a very detailed report that I know you've all read word for word. This is quickest summary. This is, I try to keep this in the same format from November to May to the following November to the next May to November to, I keep going. And I try to keep this very consistent so that if people are looking and trying to do their own comparisons, it will always look the same. So end of '24, we are going to be looking at a cash balance of just under $21 million. That's as of right now. I do have one more month in our operations, so if everything happens the way I think it's going to happen, that's where we will end up. Right now, I'm forecasting at the end of '28 a cash balance of just over 15 million. So as you can see there on that fourth line down, which is the annual surplus and or deficit, in '24 we do have a surplus. We are expecting, though, to start deficit spending next year. And then once you start deficit spending, as we all know, with the way our levies work, when our revenue stays pretty consistent and expenditures, as everybody knows, when you go to the grocery store, prices continue to go up. So expenditures continue to go up. So our revenue does not stay consistent with that. So once we do start deficit spending, that deficit just gets larger and larger every year. And you can see that there on that line. By '28, right now, with what we know now and what we're estimating, we're expecting to be deficit spending to the tune of about $2.6 million. So by that point, we would need to be discussing what we're going to do about it. So once we start deficit spending, you get past that 25, 26 area, we have to start considering what we're going to do. Because once that starts to happen, we can't turn the ship immediately. It's a very slow process to change that. So, okay. So talking first about revenue, revenue and other financing sources. In all of these slides from here on, the dotted line represents what we had in the November forecast, and then the solid line is what we're looking at right now. The dip there from '24 to '25, that is that $1.76 million that I know I have to point out every single month when I'm talking about our financial reports, because it created a little blip there, that our advances were so high at the end of the year. And again, the reason we had to advance out of the general fund so much more money than normal is because we had those ESSER funds that we had expended at the end of '23, a lot of money to use up those federal grants, and then we spend those grants and then they reimburse that money to us. The money did not get reimbursed until this fiscal year. So we had to advance it out at the end of last fiscal year so that we could eliminate that negative fund balance, because we do get a compliance citation if we have negative fund balances. So we had to make that advance. The advance came in. It looks like we got $1.7 million more than we did. That's not really revenue, even though it's included in the revenue line. It's just moving it back. So promise I will not continue to give that very long explanation for the rest of time. So I'm going to talk about why that solid line is a little bit higher in May for the life of the forecast than it was in November. I'm going to show you where it's happening. So if you pulled up the November forecast and you laid it right next to the May forecast, and you're just looking at numbers and you're comparing, where you're going to see the bigger differences is just what I'm going to talk about. I'm not going to talk about all the lines where they pretty much stay the same. This is one line, restricted grants and aid, where the money that we received this year was significantly more than we thought it was going to be back in November. We got an $88,000 or almost $89,000 check. Wasn't really a check, but it comes as a direct deposit, but an $89,000 deposit from the state of Ohio for the science of reading. So that's to purchase high quality instructional materials. That money is restricted to purchase specific things. That's why it's in that line. But in November, we didn't know that was coming. So when you're talking $300,000, an $89,000 difference is a big difference.
All the years say 2020.
I thought I fixed that. Oh my gosh, I saw that last night too, and I thought I fixed them all. I apologize. Are they all like that? They're all gonna be like that, aren't they? Okay. All right. I apologize for that. Oh, I'm going backwards. Okay. The next line where there's a big difference is other revenue. So the largest difference in here, this is where we put our investment income. And this is just because I did not estimate enough interest. I try to be conservative. I go based on, what we expect our cash balances to be. And then I just try to estimate, what I think is going to happen. Interest rates are up. We all know that. They've continued to rise, which is fantastic when you're talking about investment income. So we got a lot more money than we thought. I estimated 1.2 in investment income. We're closer to almost the 2 million. The 1.5 includes some other things in there back in November, but it's a large difference. It's really, the majority of it is investment income, which is a good thing. It compounds though, because as we collect more money, then the fund balance is higher, and then we make even more investment income. So my error just gets larger and larger as the year goes on, so.
Wouldn't it be nice to have those kinds of errors all the time?
Right? Okay. Next is other financing sources. Again, so this is where that advance in comes in. It's a larger blip here because this is only that portion. What you were looking at the first time you saw that was all revenue. So this is just the other financing sources. And most of this is advances in. So that's why it's going down from 24 to, on there it says 24, that's 25. But that again is that $1.8 million advance out of the general fund back into the general fund this year. The difference between the dotted line, which is November, and the solid line, which is May, is an increase in my estimate on the advances out for those federal funds. It just tends to be that we're not getting the money in as fast as we had in the past, and I had 200,000 in there. In the past, I've increased it to 500,000 as the estimate. So that's why the difference for every single year for the life of the forecast is the same, because I just increased that estimate on those advances in. And you'll see that on the other side as well. This is the advance back in. You'll see it on the expenditure as well, because we're estimating the advance out too at the end of the year. Okay. Any questions on revenue? Not too much different than what we expected. Okay, moving on to expenditures. Again, you can see that the dotted line is November, solid line is May. Numbers are up a little bit. Most of that is going to be the advances out. Our expenditures have not fluctuated too much from what we thought would happen back in November. The difference there is that most of that difference is the $300,000 that I've increased the expectation on the advances out. So everything else is pretty consistent. It's not exact, but nothing material that I think I need to point out. Okay. So this is what I like to call the break-even graph. I've got blue is revenue, orange is expenditures. Again, dotted line is November, solid line is May. You can see we're up slightly both on revenue and expenditure, which means that the difference in cash is not going to be significant because you're increasing the revenue and the expenditure. So here's what our cash looks like. And this looks a little scary. I know we don't like that, that decreasing number, but it is what it is. Because as I pointed out at the beginning, once we start deficit spending, that deficit gets larger every year. And when we have a deficit, what we're doing is spending down our cash. So things look a little bit slightly better than November going out to 2028. But, again, the further out we get, the less accurate we are, just because things change and we don't have a crystal ball. So we do the best we can, but we're always going to be the most accurate on the nearest year. And as the further out we get, the less we rely on that number. But we do know that once the deficit spending starts, it doesn't stop unless we severely cut expenditures or we increase revenue. So again, we will have to be having some tough discussions in the next couple of years about what to do about that. However, I do always like to point out, it's my favorite slide, that smart decisions and a district-wide commitment to strong financial management have resulted in an extended levy cycle beyond what we promised our community in 2020. When we passed the last levy in 2020, we promised 3 years. We said we would likely get 4. That is right now. We would be, looking at a levy in November if we had not made decisions that we've made and are constantly looking at ways to improve efficiency and ways that we can adapt and adjust to the students' needs and, do the best that we can with what we have. And I think we do a really good job at it, so. That is all.
And just to clarify,
Yes.
we're not asking for a levy in November.
Not at all, absolutely not, 100%, we are not on the ballot.
Get that on,
Sorry.
get that on YouTube.
Do not start that rumor.
No, we 100% are not. I was just pointing out that, 4 years ago, we thought we would be at this point,
Right.
and we are not. We have a healthy balance. We're doing the right things. We're constantly adjusting and turning on a dime sometimes, it feels like, to do what we have to do for our students and still provide them with, the education that our community expects and deserves. But we're doing it in a fiscally responsible way, so.
Thank you.
Yep. Any questions? This was probably one of the easiest May updates just because there weren't too many changes from what we expected in November. This was a quiet, a quiet year. There weren't there wasn't any crazy mandates from Columbus or notifications that they're going to take $200,000 from us immediately or anything like that.
We
So
did get some money on, I think I heard you say, for the science of reading, right?
yes,
Right.
Okay, which was not necessarily expected, so that's.
yes, that was great.
Right.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
didn't know what we were gonna get. I don't know that it's enough to cover, I'm sure it's
I
not.
don't believe it's enough to cover it. It never
curriculum and the
is.
training and everything else, but
Right.
at least we did get something from the state.
Yes, we got 89,000.
Not yet another completely unfunded
Right.
mandate.
Right,
Yep. Yeah, that's in the restricted grant line.
great.
Okay, that is all I have. I'm recommending your approval.
I want to make one more, or ask you
Absolutely.
to highlight one more thing, because
Okay.
you're talking about ways that we try to save money or try to be efficient with the money, our taxpayers' money. Can you talk a little bit about the self-insurance fund?
Absolutely.
And I have seen, I know you're already, that there's issues on biometric screening and things that go out to teachers that are incentives for choices, that it really is an effort that the teachers make, that the central office makes to try to keep those costs down, because we all benefit from that.
Absolutely.
So can you talk about that for a second?
So, yeah, a couple years ago, when we were looking at, we have to do a renewal every year for our insurance program. And we get a report, it's very detailed, and it shows, month to month, how much we put in and how much got spent. And that's what the insurance company uses to determine our rates for the following year. Looking at those reports for about 2 or 3 years in a row, Medical Mutual was making about $1 million a year off of us. Because we are fully insured, and we were fully insured, and that's just, the nature of the game. So we thought, okay, this is getting very consistent. This is something that we really need to look into. We had spent a lot of time over the course of 3 years educating the insurance committee, which is a group of teachers and administrators who, look at those rates and talk about it. The insurance coverage is also in the negotiated agreements. So they, we need them to be a part of that. So we'd spent a lot of time educating people. We finally got enough buy-in and enough trust to make the move. And so we switched to self-insurance, which means we collect the contributions or premiums, what people would normally refer to as premiums, in our own fund. So we put it in the self-insurance fund, And then at the end of every week, we pay the claims out ourselves. So we still use Medical Mutual to do all of the administrative work and, all of that stuff. I'm not paying doctors directly. I'm paying, at the end of every week, I'm paying our claims to Medical Mutual. Medical Mutual then still makes all those payments out to the hospitals and the doctors and such. That fund has continued to grow exactly like we hoped. Part of the reason for that is just because we've had some lucky years. There is some risk involved. However, we curb that risk and we know what our maximum amount that we would have to pay out is because we purchase stop loss insurance. So we're never going to be in a position where we have to pay out all of the self-insurance fund balance plus, our entire general fund. It's never going to happen because we purchase insurance on top of our self-insurance. So we have saved, I don't have numbers because I don't know exactly what Medical Mutual would have charged us had we been fully insured, because they know that we're not fully insured, we're self-insured now. But we've saved at least, even if it was only the $1 million each year for the prior 3 years, we've saved at least $3 to $4 million at this point. So that right there, we would have been on the ballot had we not done that.
That's a big deal.
It is, and it's not just, it was great that we got buy-in and we were able to educate enough people to do it and to pull the trigger and go for it. But it's also because our teachers and our classified staff and everybody is starting to really understand it, and they understand that when they go for that MRI, they have a choice. They can just walk down the hall at the Cleveland Clinic and pay, $7,000 for it, or they can do a little bit of research and find another facility and pay maybe $800. And they understand that saves our self-insurance fund money. And when our self-insurance fund balance is healthy, then in the following year, we don't have to take a large increase. So when some schools are paying maybe a 10% increase from year to year, we're seeing a 1% increase. So that saves the general fund money, and then it also saves the employee money.
Which is why you were allowed to pause premium payout for the
Yes.
year, for that 1 month.
Exactly.
November, December?
Exactly, and I think that kind of opened up some more eyes. Maybe the people who were kind of, ignoring the emails and ignoring the message. I think maybe some of those people then saw like, whoa, wait a minute, this can save me money too.
Right.
Because it does, it saves the general fund a lot of money. Because that's 1 month of premium that we didn't have to pay out of the general fund into the self-insurance fund that we had counted on. So, it helps the district because the district pays 80% of the premium, the employee pays 20%. So it helps the district and it helps the employee.
Right.
And now that people are really paying attention and, really kind of putting some effort into doing their own research, it helps.
Maybe Dr. Benzarski, you can speak to this too. Like, I'm forming connections in my mind about how, that was part of the strategic plan was like the student and staff wellness. Like, is this something that could, can bolster that as well if we're focusing on our staff wellness as well?
I think so. We have some wellness programs in place that we have had.
Right.
We're trying to expand on those and improve on those. We have a program now that I just sent an email out last week or a couple days ago to the staff, just kind of as a reminder, like, hey, just a reminder, if you're doing things over the summer, because that's when people tend to do their, their procedures and get things done that they've kind of put off during the school year, to go ahead and use this tool that we have that compares for them. So you put in, you type in what it is you're looking for. I'm looking for this test. I'm looking for this X-ray. I want to stay in this, this number of miles from my home, which is here. And it'll pull up all these facilities and say it'll be this much here and this much here and this much here. To the employee, depending on how much they save the plan, they can get a reward back then of up to $500. So that is incentivizing people to go out and actually do it and put a little more effort into it. which still saves us money. You know, even though the employee gets $500, if the plan is going to save $4,000, I'm absolutely willing to give
To give
to
500
give
away.
those rewards to get people, you know, to put the effort into it. So,
Excellent.
yeah.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions?
Anybody?
Ashley, please take the roll.
Okay. Mrs. Miller,
Yes.
Dr. Sabo,
Yes.
Dr. Schlepper,
Yes.
Mrs. Bendel,
Yes.
Mrs. Hoy.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, now I make a motion,
Yes.
correct? Okay. I'd like to make a motion to enter into
Oh, wait,
executive.
let me just check and make
No.
sure. We don't have anybody else signed up for public participation, right? For the
do
second
not.
session, non-agenda items?
Nope.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to enter into executive session in accordance with Ohio Revised Code 121.22 for the sole purpose of the consideration of the following matters. To consider one or more as applicable of the checkmarked items with respect to a public employee or official, employment and compensation of a public employee or official. Do I have a second?
I'll second. Ashley?
Everybody? Dr. Sabo,
Yes.
Dr. Schlepper,
Yes.
Mrs. Bendel,
Yes.
Mrs. Hoy,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller.
Yes.
Okay, and we might come back after executive session.
Okay.
Are we going to central office?
Yeah, I think we need to be clear, there may be action.